Hey everybody, how's it going today? Well, today I wanted to talk about it. Interestingly enough, it kind of combines the last two topics that I'm talking about. As you know, I've been working a really full time job and things have been getting hectic. And because things are getting hectic, I can get really stressed and stuff like that. But I'm still trying to do the best to, make my projects work better, make the things work better that I do, even despite the adversity that I can see at the time. So the reality is that there are furries who run conventions and are staff at these things. And the last video I kind of talked about the sort of the rat race between Midwest Fur Fest and Anthrocon. Um, but there's people who are volunteers and staff on these places that really do work really hard. And people who are staff can sometimes inadvertently become famous in a sense, right? I have even run into like on a random grouping of VR chat where somebody knew who I was, and it's crazy. It's great. Um, and they like talked about and they were a younger fur, which is always great to see more younger furs interested in nonfiction. I think more and more these days, especially with, as I said, the changing dynamics in social media. But the interesting thing is that when you meet a person you're a fan of, you can sometimes get a little too antsy or a little too panicky, or you talk about things that, in tangent of that. And like the person who talked to me was absolutely wonderful, no issues. They, were able to, just say hi and do the things and stuff like that. I was at another meet recently, though, where there was a person who had arrived at this meeting in VR chat, and they were clearly a staff member at a convention, right? And I won't say which convention, I won't say the person who was talking to who and who was talking to who, but I will say I did find out some pertinent information about, the future of that convention and what the problems that they're having and the way that they, are putting forth to address them. But I think this is kind of the important thing about doing nonfiction and news is that you don't want to unduly influence something, especially if it could come off as a positive in the long run. Because when it comes to changing an institution or changing things, it can be very precarious on, getting the staff together, getting them to agree upon a change, agreeing how to communicate that change to basically people in the convention. And my eyes are drifting north and I don't know how to stop that, so I guess I'll sit up a little bit more. Sometimes it's like, I don't know why, what are you looking at, dude? There, keep looking this way. see, this is why it's like the VR chat really works, is because my eyes go all over the place. It's sort of like real life with like it's like, why can't you keep eye contact, sir? It's like, maybe this is why furries love this, because you don't have to worry about eye contact. Your eyes are shifting all over the place. But going back to the topic that we're talking about, right? It's important that you try not to do undue influence, especially if there's already talks and already discussions and already things happening. I am not a member of that staff, right? It's their convention to run, and so I tend not to, if I see a staff member in the wild, I don't press questions on them. I don't press 20 questions on them. I don't give them my personal opinion about all these things, because if they wanted that, they could go to, a flavor article I write about a problem, or, they could go to social media where people are talking about the problem. And this is where the concept kind of goes back to that object pertinence thing I was talking about. But this is more like concept pertinence. If somebody is complaining about a convention online and they use the convention's name, or they use the staff member's name, or they use an attendee's name, or anything like that, 9 times out of 10, the convention is going to be aware of that situation. They're going to know about that situation because they have staff, like social media staff. Furries are pretty technologically savvy. They know where people are going to chat on social media, whether it's in Telegram or, Twitex, Mastodon, Blue Sky, any of those places. So if somebody is complaining about a certain event or a certain instance or the lines being too long or anything like that, the staff is already well aware, and they don't have to hear for the upteenth time that is an issue, because they're probably well aware that it's an issue. There's an interesting concept that became popularized about 5 or 6 years ago called microaggression, right? And the interesting thing about microaggression is that it was basically a concept that was used to talk about interracial conversation points and stereotypes and things like that, where, oh, the joke that you think is funny, this person's already heard 100 times. And that concept can stretch beyond interracial relations. Like, a very popular one that we know about is, the concept of a person who works retail behind a cash register, right? And they are, just scanning items, and then they're having trouble scanning one of the items. And then the customer goes, ha ha ha, I guess that one's free. Am I right? And the cashier's like, I've heard that one 700 times. Man, I don't know what to tell you. I've heard that one so much. And so they've heard that one several times. The other person might think they're clever because, like, they want something for free, man. Come on, help a guy out, But it becomes such a trope. And by the way, it's such a well-known trope now that most people know, good people who are not trying to get under the skin of the retail worker or jest with them or try and make them smile aren't going to use that thing. They're going to be like, oh man, that thing's being a pain in the butt, isn't it? Sorry about that. I would have gotten a better one if I'd known that. Or if it's an item that they didn't really want, or if it's like not actually essential to their grocery thing, they might go, you know what, just like, don't worry about it. It's like not a big deal. I'll try again next time to get one that actually works. I wasn't that interested in it. It's not worth the time and effort to go out and do that. So, like, showing empathy to the worker and showing empathy to that can go against that sort of standardized microaggression kind of a thing. So when you're interacting with someone from staff or someone from, or an artist that you really like, or other things like that, talking to them in such a way where, like, if they have a lot of fans, they've probably heard people go, oh, I love your work and all of this concept and stuff like that. Like, go, hey, I love that picture of the kangaroo you drew or whatever. Like, go to like specific things. Oh, I saw that picture that you posted the other day. It was wonderful. Awesome. Or like, I'd love to commission you someday. I've just got to build up and work and get myself, the money to do so. Things like that. And people get, and by the way, like, the same thing kind of works the other way, right? Where it's like, most customers and most consumers of furry content at this point know, like, don't like tell an artist, oh, this is too expensive. Like go, well, I know I can't afford it right now, but you're well worth the price. I will work harder and get get to, hopefully get to you someday. Hopefully, you have a lot of work to keep you busy in the meantime. And I'm sure you do, because you're talented, right? You can kind of like indicate that it's too expensive for you right now without like making the artist feel like they're worthless, right? So there's sort of these like nuances and these things. Probably could write up a document on it at some point. Probably would be a good idea. Just taking some of the standard things that people online do and just kind of putting it in one place. Because learning is a constant thing. People are going to learn in their own ways. Young people are going to like learn about the nuances and stuff like that of the gatherings that they have, at this point. At the end of the day, though, kind of looping back to this sort of event that happened, this person, I think, this staff member who was at this gathering, I think they just wanted to hang out and they wanted to just like not think about the convention, not think about, the issues and the things. And I think they were the only staff person at the gathering. So even if the person gave them good ideas and good thoughts, the problem is that if they haven't already heard it, right, and it's a quote unquote microaggression where it's like, yes, I've heard this already, and you're kind of repeating yourself, and I just want to enjoy myself. Like, don't, because the guy was talking to them for like a good probably half hour. It was, and they did kind of recur over some of those points, like repeated points, and and the staff member was kind of alluding to, it's like, yeah, like the problem is always like we can hear like, of all the issues and all the suggestions that we get, like 90% of them are not implementable. And like, so like, that's sort of, to me, a hint. It's like, we're not going to resolve this here. Like, let's enjoy ourselves, please, let's go talk to people. Let's do things. Though maybe I'm misunderstanding the situation. Maybe the person does like to talk about their work. But it didn't seem that way. It seemed like they were stressing, and they were kind of like going, man, I'm stressing. And like, and they kind of left soon after we took the photo at that group gathering. So basically, at the end of the day, it was like, he was like, I think that it was like, maybe we should have like some sort of safe word or something like that for staff members to use. Like, say like rotten banana or something, like something that indicate it's like, hey, rotten banana. Like basically not a way to say, basically a way to say F off without saying like F off. You know what I mean? So like, maybe we as a fandom should come up with a safe word. Like, it's like, I appreciate you. I appreciate your concern. I appreciate your patronage, your feelings about this thing. But I'm not here to talk about that, or I'm not here to discuss that, or I'm kind of busy. Like, we need a safe word or something. It's like fandom wide, and it's like rotten banana or something. It's like, okay, like rotten banana. I'm done talking about this. Let's move on to let's conversate about something else other than the thing that I do, like news writing or art or whatever, or the show that I work on, right? Because like, people are more than just one thing, right? A lot of people like niches. People get put into niches a lot, but I'm more than just a person who talks about furry nonfiction. I'm like a person who does, who works about like 50 to 60 hours a week in my normal job. I'm, other than that, in this, I guess not too much, because like, who has time for anything else? But I have to do chores. I have to maintain my household. I have to do these kind of things. Like, there's times where I have bad days and good days, and same with anyone else. And, luckily for me, this fandom's not too deep into it. And so when I have a fan or two, like, I'm in such a niche thing that like, it's like, oh man, this is rare and very unique. But for like people who are staff members, artists, maybe writers a little bit, not as much, like they can get overwhelmed and like interact with a lot of different fans, and maybe like sometimes they're not in the mood. So maybe that safe word thing could come into the thing. The idea is time and place. There's a time and a place for everything. If the person was like, oh, look, this, like, they were like getting very concerned, and it felt like, honestly, it felt like the person who was talking to the staff member was more concerned about the convention than the staff member was. And it's like, I mean, if you're that concerned, volunteer, right? Like here's the thing, I don't, and I wouldn't do that, because if I'm once again, time and place, like, me overhearing some of that conversation, I kind of felt a little dirty, because it's like, the two sides of me. It's like, you do furry nonfiction. This is like a scoop right here. Like, he's talking about this thing that's going to change for this convention, and the thing that they're discussing to change this for the better, or, and things like that in the future. And it's like, I think a lot of people would like to know about this. And so like, him telling him that was very awesome. Like, it was a very, like, he got very good information, but he just wouldn't stop. Right? It's like, man, that's very interesting. That's very cool. Like that information there. But he kept like getting worried and more worried. It's like, no, they told you, they're discussing the situation. They're working on it. It's good. It's golden. So at the end of the day, when it comes down to like, when you're discussing things and stuff like that, time and place, Discussing if you see a staff member online in a group or something like that that's not related to the convention or anything that they're doing, it's not the best method to talk to that person individually about your concerns, because you're kind of relying on that individual to remember the entire conversation that you had and forward that information off to the group as a whole, so that the group as a whole can add your thoughts to it. And the reality is that if you do that by going through the proper channels, by using like the support emails about your thoughts and concerns, and, or going to social media to express it to the ether, and maybe the convention will see it or curate it or have their PR or their social media person go through and curate all that information. Or maybe I will see your complaint, and then, like in last video when I said, like, in the example of Anthrocon, like, oh, the lines are really long, that was a big issue, here's some like hours that people were waiting. And since I posted that video, a lot more people have posted 5 hours, like about 2 or 3 more. So it's like, yeah, the lines are pretty long. And also, on social media, like the fursuit parade was like extensive for Anthrocon, right? And so like, and there was about 2 or 3 people complaining about like not being able to get through the thing in a timely manner, and they were dealing with heat and they couldn't really make it, so they kind of gave up. And so that kind of issue, right, is well presented on social media, and because people presented that issue on social media, I curated it, and stuff like that. So like I curated that information and I shared it with the general public. If a staff member watches it, that's great. If they don't, then they've probably found they probably know that information because you shared it and I saw it on social media, so they probably saw it on social media. So it's like I don't have to tell them about their concerns, and they don't have to watch my videos to see their concerns. They have the proper channels to do that. It's concept pertinence, right? So this idea that, if a lot of people are talking about something, then a person who is targeted or known about it probably already knows about it. And by the way, microaggressions work in the concept of like quote unquote cancel culture and quote unquote like these like sort of like why people can become irate online, because a person has an issue with another person and they'll post it online, and then like all of a sudden every one of the people that follow that person is basically flooding that person with information. And there's sort of ways to deal with that. And if you want a really good example, probably back in February 2021, if you go back through the list of my videos, there was one time where, so far, cross my fingers, knock on the wood here. Let me see if I can actually align up my hand with the actual wood here. But of course, I'm knocking wood in air. That doesn't make any sense. I have to adjust my desk to match the desk here. But basically, like, when I knew that like a person who was very popular, and I kind of was my tail in a wad that day, and kind of like said something pretty bad, and like got him pretty ticked off about it, which was very unfair, and I addressed that. Basically, like as soon as like it was like I knew that this was going to escalate, it's basically like, let me write down a thing, let me post a link there, and basically forward off anyone there. Basically not lock off, like some people will lock off their entire account, like that's not something that I do, but it's basically like, yeah, I screwed up, here's the link to the thing that I said I screwed up in. And if a person is like coming at me and saying like, oh, you're harassing them and harassing me, and I'm gonna say, okay, if I'm if anybody from the ether says you're harassing this person, right, I'll say, okay, here's what I'm doing. I'm blocking that person and I'm blocking you for at least a month, right, so that this conflict that we're having stops and this de-escalates. Because, and that's sort of the whole thing where, because once again, concept pertinence. This person that I made angry and upset because I was being a jerk, contacted all their friends, like posted to all their friends and all their thing on social media, And then basically what that does is it creates a situation where every single one of those individuals will, go to that other individual and quote unquote speak their mind. And because they don't know that the other person has spoken their mind, because everybody has emotions on an individual level. And because everyone has emotions on an individual level, everyone wants to say what they think about it, even though everybody is thinking the same thing because they saw a person that they care for get angry. So it's just like, so emotions like that, you have to understand. It's like, is your fear warranted? Is it, does your concept actually add anything to the conversation? Or is your repeating something that somebody already heard causing more undue stress? So just something to think about in the concept of things. So it's typically why I report afterwards. I wait about a week or two if there's some sort of conflict. And if it's something that is worthy of conversation after that 1 week of like interpersonal issue and it's a broader concept, then I'll like do a piece on it or talk about it. But in this case, it's like I wanted to kind of do this sort of video on this topic because I think it's a very interesting topic, and I think it's one that a lot of furries can learn from, and we'll have to keep relearning, right? Because people are chatty and emotional, and like they want to talk, but they might not realize that they're causing undue stress. So maybe for people who are things, consider the concept of a safety phrase or something like that to basically tell the person it's all right, it's okay, let's talk about something else or let's move on or whatever, but not be a jerk about it, right? So don't make it like, your safety phrase could be F off, get the F off, I'm dealing with something, I'm trying to be happy right now, F off, get out of here. Anyways, rotten banana. Kick that like, kick the subscribe button, kick a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this video and what your thoughts are on if you've ever had to deal with a person who is like talking about a topic that you don't really want to discuss in a sort of obsessive kind of way, and trying to get them to like leave you to your day, as it were, or not going through the proper channels. I'm sure there's plenty of stories like that. So obviously share them in the comment section. Kick the like, kick the subscribe button if you like this kind of content. If you like the algorithm and want to help me get more algorithm points, whatever they're worth. Anyways, have a good one here, and I'll see you guys later. Oh, come on. Nope. I'm misaiming. Problem is when I put my hands down too low, it kind of like drifts sometimes. And I'm like, I hope I didn't click the wrong thing.